I'm Chip Townsend, and this is the Team Chip Podcast. Hey guys, we're back with the Team Chip Podcast. Super excited to be here with you today. We're going to talk about something that through the years, I think it's getting better, but through the years, I've seen it a ton in martial arts schools, in business, in a lot of different places, and I think it impacts all of us. We're going to talk about leadership from the perspective of influence versus authority. So, influence versus authority. Man, what am I talking about? Authority is just like positional based. It's very hierarchical. Okay. So what authority looks like, it's very, top down. You listen to me because of my position and my position only. It's commanding, it's legalistic, it's kind of pharisaical, for lack of better words. And it's like, when you're coming from a position of just authority, like it's like the young guy at the local burger joint gets, promoted to the lead French fry guy. And all of a sudden he's like telling everybody what to do. Right. There's not a lot of respect involved. And I think it can be common in the martial arts world because we have rank structures, almost like, kind of militant and military. And it can be easy to lean into, just do it because I said, because it's my rank. Authority creates like this kind of compliance-based culture where people just comply. Oh, there comes the boss. You're walking on eggshells and, oh, I better just do what they say because they're the boss. They sign the paycheck. And you create people that are kind of weak and can't make decisions whenever you have a culture like that that's just based strictly on authority. There's no direction a lot of times, on where people are headed in the future and what kind of future they have. So again, authority is just, I know I've kind of beat it up, but it's a negative thing. People just do what they're told because they do what they're told. And in the short term, it may create some results and some obedience, for lack of better words, but in the long term, growth will stall. And over time, it begins to fail. Authority kind of gives you motion. Influence, though, gives you momentum. So authority gives you motion and influence gives you momentum. Think about if you're a martial arts school operator or any kind of business, business owner or entrepreneur, think about the different areas of your business and, and how am I treating the people around me? Am I just expecting them to follow me because I'm the boss? And, or am I, creating relationships and creating some sort of influence to get people to do their jobs and do their jobs well? And, why we depend on authority sometimes over influence is, it's easier to demand compliance out of position, than it is to cultivate an understanding. It's easier, just to say, just do it because that's the way we've always done it. There's less emotional labor involved because you're not really, developing healthy relationships. It creates kind of a flat environment. Again, I mentioned earlier, but people kind of walking on eggshells and not super excited to be there. Authority without, good positive influence can, lead to burnout. And I would even say bitterness. People get kind of bitter over time. I know whenever I was younger, whenever Glenn Ann and I first got married, we had a small business. It wasn't doing well. We were doing okay and getting by. And I'll never forget, it was an election year and things started slowing down. When election years happen a lot of times, especially presidential elections, people, especially used to, it seemed like, get a little bit tight fisted and kind of hold on to their money because everybody's nervous about what's going to happen next. Like what's going to happen. Right. And so anyway, we decided to shut down our business and we both agreed one of us would stay in school and the other one would work until we both at least got a bachelor's degree or something to that effect, got some sort of education and, till we could move into a career. And so basically I decided I would go ahead and go to work because at the time I could make a little bit more money than she could doing just, kind of your regular everyday job. And so I got a job selling cars and I had this boss. He was our general manager and, he oversaw the whole sales department. And then I had a sales manager directly above me and the sales manager reported to the general manager. So my sales manager kind of took me in, really nice guy, taught me a little bit, not a ton, But the general manager was an absolute authority-based leader, period. Like, he almost had a god complex. He just did not do anything wrong. And I had this vivid memory one time. Uh, Everyone walked on eggshells around him. Nobody liked dealing with him, and inevitably, we all had to deal with him because during parts of our car deals, it was required for us to go to him, let him look things over, give us an estimate on used cars, stuff like that. So, we had to deal with him, and so it was really tough. And I remember thinking, man, you know, I want to enjoy my job, but sometimes I can't because, it's hard to deal with this guy. So I have this vivid memory of doing a car deal, and we had this thing called a four square where, in one square on the sheet, whenever we had a customer come in, we would fill out information about the brand new car and what the price was. And over here was information about their trade in and how many miles and all of this stuff. And we would take it to the general manager, and he would what he called it an ACV, an actual cash value. He would go out and look at the car and give them an estimate to trade it in. And then there was another box down here that was how much would you like to pay down, like down payment. So it was this very kind of structured way that we did car deals at the time. And then there was another box. The bottom right side was payment. What kind of payment, can we get you at, et cetera, to sell you the car. So he always taught us in this section on their car that they traded in. So we have new car and then the used car that's being traded. When we fill that out, to put any special request by the customer. And it was something that they told us all the time, hey, make sure you put it over here. I was doing a car deal, wrote out all the new car information, got the used car information, and I wrote in the box, had it written down. They want to keep their stereo. It was in the old days when people would keep their stereos out of cars, stuff like that. They want to keep their stereo and some speakers. And I had it all listed out. He goes out and he estimates the car, puts a number on it. I come back in. We work an entire car deal. The people are super happy. We make a trade. And so I go back to him after and I say, hey, when can they come up to get, they want to take the new car. They've got their deal done. When can they come get their stereo out of the car? And he said, what are you talking about? And I said, it's right here on the deal. They asked to keep their stereo. And he went absolutely ballistic and just tore me up and said, I never told you to put it there. You're supposed to put it over here, and started pointing at the other side of the sheet where the new car is, which had never been the case, never the way we did. So, but the point is he just refused to say, oh my gosh, I overlooked that and I made a mistake. I probably should have pointed it out to him when I brought it to him, but I didn't. I wrote it where it was expected to be. Anyway, the point is he was super hierarchical, very much command and authority. And again, everybody just walked on eggshells around the guy, and no one enjoyed their job. And I just remember at that time, even being kind of a kid, just thinking, man, there's got to be a better way. And obviously at the time, I didn't know what that way was. And so now I understand, as a little more mature person and having owned a business and having a team, that instead of just authoritying our staff and team to death, we've got to influence them. So what does influence look like? Uh, it's presence, it's respect, it's consistent modeling. Sometimes they say it's inspecting what you expect, which means if I'm going to ask you to do it, I do it, right? I'm not above doing any job. And we talk about this in the podcast sometimes, but I am sometimes chief trash picker upper outside as people from the car wash next door leave trash laying around and it blows onto our parking lot. And we have some transients. Sometimes they go up and down our alley and they'll leave, bags of trash, and we have to go out and pick it up. So, it's being willing to do all those things and not just looking at one of the subordinates, quote unquote, and going, you get out there and clean that trash up. That's your job, not mine. So it's presence, it's respect, modeling, it's inspecting what you expect. When you do that, your staff and your team are way more willing to follow when they have someone to follow that's, again, inspecting what they expect, doing the things that, you sometimes wouldn't expect a boss to do. Influence is leadership by example. I've already kind of talked on it, but it's example, not volume. It's not me raising my voice to tell you to go do what to do. It's me just stepping out there and doing it in front of you and modeling behavior. If I expect you to show up, a half an hour early for your classes, then I'm going to be there probably 45 minutes early. I'm going to model that behavior so that you see it. Influence over time, it grows loyalty, energy, initiative. And remember, guys, it takes time. Uh, it takes time to develop this culture. An oak tree doesn't, just pop up overnight. It takes time to grow it, anyways. But a weed pops up overnight, and a weed, I know weeds can be resilient. And that's the other tough thing when you grow weeds, when you are authoritarian versus someone who is relational and influential. That kind of grows a culture of, again, kind of a weak mind and eggshells, and it causes gossip and dissension because no one wants to say anything in front of the boss, so they go and they talk about it at the water cooler, etc. And so it's like, that weed, sometimes, weeds are hard to get rid of, and so if you allow that culture to start, it's hard to get out. So sometimes if it has started, it takes time to make a change. uh what are some things, some thoughts on, what we can do to transition? And another reason that I was kind of excited to talk about this is, in my early days, I was a bit positional and hierarchical because I didn't know any better. My instructor that I grew up under was very much, this is, my rank, and you do what I say because I say. And a lot of times didn't explain the why to us, like why we're doing what we're doing, just do it because I said so. And so inevitably some of that rubbed off. And in my early days, I was pretty commanding and demanding, and so I've made these mistakes, and I want to try to encourage you not to. And in saying that, because I made those mistakes, we developed that culture some, and then we had to go back and kind of break and shift that culture to a better way, to more of an influence culture. So, what are some things that you can do to make the shift from an authoritarian culture to an influence culture? Well, talk to your team and say it. Guys, I want to make a change. I want to be better for myself, and I want to be better for you. Let them know, make a commitment, be publicly accountable to those guys, and let them know we're going to make a shift. And a lot of times, I think bosses kind of think that they've got the wool pulled over the eyes of their team. They think I'm perfect and I don't make mistakes. And the reality is, they do know. They know your flaws. They're just not saying it to you, but what they're doing is they're over gossiping about it at the water cooler during their breaks or during their lunchtime. So they already know. So getting in front of the group, your team, and just saying, "Hey, put your guard down. You know what? I think I'm wrong about this and I want to make a change and do things better," shows that you care, and allows them to kind of put their guard down. And it's going to be kind of shocking to them, but I think one of the first steps is making the decision first that you're going to do it, and then next, make a public statement to your team, kind of a public accountability statement. And then, uh really, I've already mentioned, but work heavy on modeling the behaviors that you expect from the other people. And I think before we do that, we have to look inside first and really do a good self assessment, and there are leadership books and things you can get if you need help with that, that'll sometimes give you steps to kind of assess yourself, but just an honest look in the mirror. Who am I and how am I doing things? And am I really doing a good job? And you got to be painfully honest, and you've got to be able to put your guard down and truly know who you are. Another way you can do this is ask the people around you. Have some people around you that you can trust, and you can say, "How am I doing in this area? Am I just demanding, commanding, or am I developing, relationships? Am I truly influencing and inspiring my people?" But get a good grip on that. So say it and commit to it to your team. Commit to, we're going to make a change. We need to do things better. Let's start, becoming more influential and less commanding and demanding, and be vulnerable with your team. And I think when you do that self-assessment, you make that commitment from, there's a certain amount of vulnerability there, but let your team know that, hey, I make mistakes too, and open up and admit it when you do it, and admit it to them. It allows everyone to kind of go, okay, he's or she's human. They're not just standing over me. And when you do this, do it with grace, and do it with accountability. Engage Next, engage your staff with clear expectations and systems for feedback. And what I mean is, kind of job positions, if you don't have them written out, have them written out for every, kind of what the expectations are for those jobs. And even better yet, instead of just writing out their expectations, if you already have a team existing and people working for you, let them help you write out that expectation so they have some ownership in it. and uh, kind of set up a system for clear feedback for them. And feedback might look like, hey, every other week we're going to meet at this time for a half an hour and kind of check off on your job and see how you're doing. So do like a check-in meeting. So anyway, uh, give your team really clear expectations and feedback. And then the next thing is as you begin to make this transition, teach yourself and learn and practice how to celebrate initiative and effort from your team publicly. So when you see your team doing something great, say it in that moment, like, man, I'm so proud of you for doing that. Or wow, you're doing a really great job right there. And don't just do it to be doing it and don't fluff them. Truly have a reason to tell them. And even better than that, sometimes in the staff meeting, one of the things that we do is we have a section for wins. And in our wins, I encourage the team, try to make your wins about things here at the job. Uh, uh, but if you have personal wins, that's fantastic too. And then, by the way, don't make your wins just personal and kind of selfish, for lack of better words. Uh, make your wins about your team. Like, hey, this week I saw so and so doing a really great job. An example is this week, one of our young staff members saw that the fans in the gyms were getting a little fuzzy and dusty, like they do. And one day we come in and he's got fans pulled apart and he's cleaning them. Like, hey, what you doing, man? I just noticed the fans were getting fuzzy and dusty and I'm cleaning them up. And we're like, yeah. And so we've told him several times since, like, I'm so proud of you for seeing that, having that initiative and stepping in there. So celebrate those things publicly, celebrate them in front of the rest of the team. And then it kind of helps the rest of the team to begin to look for things to do to be celebrated. And if you celebrate the right things, things that move the needle for your business and create success, they'll begin to do more things that create success and move you forward. And by doing this, and this is kind of, we talk about private reprimand and public praise. This public praise at the right times and place helps to create and private reprimand, but helps to create gritty problem solving people that are willing to work hard, and to kind of lean into that, you know, private reprimand and public praise. We had another situation pop up recently where one of the young instructors kind of publicly reprimanded some of their younger team leadershipers, and those leadershipers kind of wilted. And one of the more senior leaders saw it, pulled that young leader to the side and said, "Hey, remember private reprimand. Next time, if you need to make an adjustment with them or make a correction, do it kind of quiet and privately, not in front of another group." And it was a great example. So when that young leader said, "Hey guys, y'all need to fix this," he did it in front of people. Those young guys that he corrected wilted and kind of lost their energy for a little bit. And it took some time to rebuild them. The upside is we had another one of our leaders who caught on to it and went, "Mm," and then pulled him to the side, pulled him to the side a little bit later and just politely said, "Hey, you're doing great over here, praise. But when you make those reprimands, make sure you do it kind of quiet. It wasn't harsh and it wasn't mean. You just made a correction, but it kind of stole their fire a little bit." And so when you do that well, you will build people that are gritty and they're problem solvers. I also want to touch on in this influence versus authority, the importance of unwavering support. It's kind of one of our rallying cries in our business is, when someone's doing something hard and you're watching them, number one, don't just watch someone work, but two, if it's a set in class and they're working through a class and you can't get beside them and do it with them, just encourage them. "Hey, good job. Let's go. Keep working hard." And let's get that unwavering support going. And that builds into, it helps build into a positive culture where everyone's supporting each other instead of trying to break each other down. Another thing too is as you treat your team this way, I want you to think about this kind of concept. You really want your team to become raving fans of their, for lack of better words, job of their place of work. And when we model good behaviors, inspect what we expect, we privately reprimand and publicly praise, and we praise, correct praise, and we do it in a way that's respectful and with grace, and we give them unwavering support and celebrate them in front of their teammates. Those guys, they grow in their loyalty and they grow in their work ethic and their willingness to pour themselves out for you. And then even think about this, let's say you have a team that you've poured into this way, instead of, remember, we're talking influence versus authority, instead of just always telling them, you do this because, and not giving them the why and just kind of running them over with your authority, instead of your team being tentative and afraid and on eggshells, they're going to be bold and they're going to be willing to come up and ask questions and even push back on you if you need it. But just think, if you ever have someone that wants to naysay your business and that team member hears that, they're going to go to bat for you. Like, hey, I know these folks and they treat us amazing and you're wrong. So when you create that kind of culture, it's just such a win-win all the way around the circle. Not only, does the team feel like they're a part of something bigger than themselves, but as you create this culture of influence and unwavering support, they're willing to go to bat and defend anything that comes up negative about you. And we all know that in our business, sometimes negative things happen. People, we have those issues and it's just part of the process. And influence, authority shows up everywhere in a negative way, but influence shows up everywhere. Your students, when you influence them and encourage them, right, they rise to the challenge instead of just going through the motions. So encourage you to really work on that praise and unwavering support. Your team, they stay longer, they perform better, they begin to mentor others in a more positive way. People love training and doing things with people that they like. And it's, and I will really quickly caveat this with, we talk to our team about the difference in being personable versus personal. We don't want to be overly personal with our teammates and our students, our clientele especially, but we always want to be personable, friendly, approachable, respectful, graceful, etc. So people tend to stick better when there's a culture of influence versus a culture of just demand and authority. And that culture of influence is much more likely to be self-sustaining. Influence isn't optional. It's the difference between surviving and thriving. Authority is surviving. Do it because I said, rah, 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 rah. Check those boxes, check those boxes. And influence, creating relationships, modeling good behavior, encouraging and unwavering support creates a thriving culture and a thriving community. So some things for you to start with this week, if you want a little challenge here, is go in and watch your team, whatever it is, whatever business you're in the martial arts school, you have a young assistant instructor or any assistant instructor in there. Just go in and watch them teach and watch how they interact with the students and see how the students respond to them. And then try to be emotionally intelligent and aware of how your students and your staff respond to your presence and your commands, for lack of better words. How do they respond to you? And another thing is, pick one authority based habit and convert it to influence. So if you have a habit in an area of just kind of being do it because, do it, make an intentional effort to make that switch. And again, we already talked about it, but, make that public, talk to your team and let them know, hey, I've been studying, I really want to do things better. I want to lighten up our culture, make it better and make it something that's much more sustainable for the long haul. And, just think, how would I want to be led? I all the time when I'm working with the team and our organization and our affiliate schools, I think to myself back to that time that I had that boss that was just like this authoritarian. I used to say he just kind of like he had kind of a God complex. Like he couldn't make a mistake. And he would absolutely just, in essence, lie. Like, I told you to put it here, but the whole time you'd been trained to put it here because he missed it. And so anyway, kind of a tough situation, but a great learning experience that I went through. Remember, authority makes people move and influence helps people to grow. Authority might make them move, but influence helps them to grow. And we want people around us that are constantly growing and improving, not just checking a box and moving. All right, guys. So that's just kind of my take on influence versus authority. Hope that's helpful. Just remember, and again, I think it can be easy in a martial arts school to kind of get authoritarian sometimes. And back in the old days, we talk about back in the day, schools tend to be sometimes very authoritarian, just do it because I said, do it because this is the way we've always done it. But that's not typically always the best way to do it. It's a much better, again, and it's more work, but develop good relationships with your staff, your team, and your clientele. Healthy, personable, not overly personal relationships. Hope that helped. You got a nugget from this. Like it, love it, subscribe to it. Let us know what you'd like to hear about, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you for tuning into the Team Chip Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget, subscribe, share, and or leave a review, because we need you. We appreciate you so much, and without you, we can't make this happen. Remember, consistency is the key to success, so go out there and never be outworked.